Welcome to God's Angry Men. I'm Dr. Carmen Celestini.
And I'm Kyle Hickey. Thank you for joining us. It's been a few weeks since our last episode, and a few weeks since you and I have had a chance to sit together and do this in person.
hmm
Virtual's fun, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. I miss you,
I
Kyle.
miss you too. I mean, who else am I going to banter with and get criticized or argue with, or you know what I mean? It's
Argue with you. I won't criticize you, maybe just correct you.
on that note. A lot has happened in the last few weeks. Last time we were talking, Canada was going up against the United States in the Four
Ooh.
Nations. It's one of the few times that I really got behind a hockey game and
Because it was
watched.
political, and even I
It was
engaged in it.
it was political, and I felt the whole country was watching. If you're not a fan of hockey, I'm not saying I'm not a fan. I have my moments, but everyone was watching that game
Absolutely
because
everyone.
everybody wanted to see our Canadian geese snap the neck of that bald eagle on their ice in Boston. And it's a
hmm
bit graphic. I'm sorry to the kids at home hearing that, but that's kind of how it was.
But it really was. I know that we were watching it, and I'm not really a hockey person. I used to be when I was a kid. And suddenly I was like, oh. The first fight in the first game, and then there was like three more fights, and I was like, "Oh, this has nothing to do with hockey."
Oh
I'm
yeah, that.
so engaged, and I started like texting you, going, "Are you watching this hockey
Oh, and it
game?"
was.
And we totally were. And the last night of the game, I was with a girlfriend of mine, and we weren't watching, but I was like checking the score to make sure, and then I was very happy that we won.
Oh,
Very.
through the roof. I watched part of it. I had some stuff on the go the night, but I was checking in when I could as well. And when it came through that they won, I screamed. I threw my phone in the air. Thankfully, it landed on something soft, so nothing broke. I got to the nearest TV to watch the part where, you saw the honorary captains come out, and at the end of the day, it's a sport. Congratulations to both teams for making it to where they did.
He's so nice.
But there was a moment that kind of caught everyone in Canada a
Absolutely.
little by surprise. Hockey legend Wayne Gretzky, Canada's boy prince of hockey. He was the honorary captain,
He
and he
was.
came out from the American side of the ice, the rink. Listen, I have got cousins who have played hockey all their life, so they're gonna chastise me for this because I don't know what that's called. I am so sorry in advance. Please
See,
don't disown me.
okay,
But
wait, we need to make this moment. So, stereotypical Canadians, we don't know everything about hockey. I feel like we're doing like God's work right now.
oh my God. We're gonna be smited for not knowing this is what's gonna happen. They're gonna revoke our passports. I
God's work.
apologize to my family who are going to watch this and be like, how does he not know? Anyways, moving on. He came out and he gave a thumbs up to the US team, and I had no problem with that. I think that's sportsmanlike. A good job to them. They gave it their all. We gave better. Um, but he wasn't wearing a jersey. The
Nope.
honorary captain of the American team wore a jersey. He wore nothing at all to indicate that he was a Canadian, and he was
No, but he
proud and happy to
did
be
wear a
there.
blue suit that is very similar to someone else.
You're going to try to compare him to Donald Trump, aren't you?
Just a
His
little
best
bit.
buddy.
Just a little bit.
And you know what? You can be friends with who you want to be friends with. You want to be friends
We
with,
don't have to share clothes.
I don't think they fit in the same suit, but maybe they go to the same tailor, maybe.
Maybe.
Um, but the point is, aside from that comparison, it just speaks volumes. You are a legendary Canadian, and that is what you did, especially at a time where the US is not being our ally. They're not being our friend. They have been
Mm-mm.
for years. And I think the Prime Minister, the Premier of Ontario, and many leaders in Canada have said this. We're not mad at Americans. Most Americans are probably watching this thinking, what the hell?
Yeah.
It's their leadership. Leadership they chose. Let that be known. Hey, elections have consequences. But I mean, it spoke volumes that, he did that. And I think that was regrettable. And I think that was a kind of a kick to morale when Canada's already down a little bit.
Absolutely. And
Um,
we see politicians like Doug Ford in Ontario, our premier, saying, oh, he's a good guy. He's devastated by it. But sometimes your actions speak volumes.
well, and
And
those actions have
and even
been.
Trump stuck up for him, right?
Trump declared him a free agent. I found that laughable.
hmm
But I mean, speaking of Donald Trump and other world events,
Really? Do you think we're going to go there? Or do you think Donald Trump's going to be our next conversation?
I think so. I think so. I mean, we were leading that direction. So aside from hockey, other things happened, and that was I didn't think it'd get any worse than Donald Trump, the president of the United States, calling Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, a wartime president, a dictator. He criticized him because they've had no elections. And that's true. They haven't had any elections since the invasion by Russia,
Which is part of their law that during war
correct.
you cannot have an election.
And it's
So
not
that's not a
uncommon. That's
dictatorship.
not uncommon.
No.
A lot of countries, I don't think Canada has, maybe we do. I have to double check that. I don't know if the US has. I know the UK, I believe, has it. During a time of war, government kind of goes into caretaker mode. We're not going to do
Yeah.
anything dramatic, but we are going to carry out the functions of government, keep things running, and as soon as the war or crisis is over, we'll have an election. I agree. And I'm pretty sure Zelensky even said this. There will be an election as soon as the war is
And
over.
he actually offered to step down as president
Mhm.
if that would end the war and make this a better
Was
thing.
it that or if he got membership in NATO? I can't remember.
No, no, it was just in the conversation with Donald Trump. He said he would step down and he would resign the position. And they were like, no.
Well, see, I mean, that to me speaks volumes. If you're a leader and you're willing to give up your position of power, for the betterment of your country, that says a lot.
That is a very good politician and someone who should be a leader of a nation.
And what surprised me is, I mean, we're almost at, was it 42, 43 years to the day almost, that Ronald Reagan, a well-respected or not respected president, depending on where you sit politically, depending on what your views are, but needless to say, he is an iconic.
Iconic.
I,
I'll accept that.
thank you. An
I'll accept
iconic
it.
American, an iconic president who left his mark. He gave a speech to the, was it the National Association of,
No, National Evangelical
thank
Association,
you,
NEA.
the NEA. He gave a speech to them in Orlando, Florida, where he called the Soviet Union, Russia, an empire of evil. He called them that. And you have the current president cozying up to Vladimir Putin, who was a KGB agent in the Soviet Union. He's a dictator now. Elections in Russia they're shams. They
They're a
don't
sham. They're not even a real election.
they're not a real election by any means. And if there's any real opposition, they're either imprisoned
Or dead.
or dead through various
Poisoned,
means.
pushed out a window.
Yeah,
There's a lot of things that happen there.
real
And I feel
democratic
like,
things.
when we see Donald Trump engaging with Putin, I mean, even talking about Ukraine, when they met in Saudi Arabia, what was the voice that was silenced? It was Ukrainians, right? They weren't at the table. And so this feels like it's a deal between Russia and America to decide the fate for another nation, and they're not allowed to be a part of it. And so that conversation, when it was at the White House and they all met together, really came to a boil, I think.
You're
Like,
referring to when Zelensky came
yeah,
to the White House to sign that mineral deal.
the mineral deal, where they want 50% of the minerals from Ukraine to stop the war, which doesn't provide any type of guarantee that there'll be protection, support, anything from America. Just give us your stuff.
So basically a shakedown.
Yeah.
You had President Donald Trump in the Oval Office. You had Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State
Mm.
Marco Rubio. They were sitting in that office, and then there was the president of Ukraine. And they ganged up on him. I mean, they said some pretty harsh things, things that were wrong and uncalled for. And listen, Zelensky definitely said some things, challenged them, I should say, sorry. He challenged them on the facts, which was right to do. You can't have
Absolutely.
these lies and misinformation be spread so willingly, especially when lives are at stake. We're talking about people who, their homes have been destroyed, their businesses destroyed, their loved ones killed. It's a real situation there. And when you have
Absolutely.
the leader of the United States who has been this backbone against Russian aggression for so long, now rolling over
And
saying, you know
saying,
what,
no, it's
what,
fine.
here, we'll end this war by giving you whatever you want,
Yeah.
essentially, completely removing
We'll
Ukraine, like you
ignore
said.
the human beings that are suffering. We'll ignore the whole entire border. We'll ignore the country. Yeah, absolutely.
It says a lot. I mean, Ronald Reagan is probably spinning in his grave right now. I'm not gonna check. I don't think we can check that, nor should we. It's kind of morbid. Bad joke. But Bad joke. But the thing is, it's sad to see
Right.
the Republican Party where they are today. If you go back, 5, 6 years ago, most Republicans would say, we're behind Ukraine 1000%. We're going to be there for you. Um, Marco Rubio, I believe, no, sorry, not Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey
Oh my
Graham,
God, yes.
who flip-flops all over the place. Um, he with Zelensky at an event said, "We will have your back. We
Yeah.
will be there for you."
And then 5 minutes later,
And now he's trashing them, saying that how dare you come here and speak to our president this way? How dare you? You know what? What happened in the White House in the Oval Office was a disgrace. There should not have been an argument.
there
Obviously,
shouldn't
there
have
were
been.
disagreements.
And we also have to think about who are the people making the conversation. I think that when we think about who the press person was that asked
Yes,
about
yes.
Zelensky being not in a suit, which I actually respect. I mean, as a side note, if I was a president of a country and my country is at war, I'm not going to show up in my Hugo Boss or, whatever suit and act like everything is fine. It's not fine. And Zelensky has a history of just being like, I am one of the people, and this is what I'm wearing because I live in a war zone. And the person who actually asked the question with the suit was a Russian press person, which they said they snuck in. We didn't expect him to be there, which means Kyle and I could like basically sneak into the press White House and hang out with DJT, hang out
So,
with
so you're saying as
JD,
our next episode, we're going to be broadcasting live from the White House front lawn?
possibly.
Yes.
Possibly.
Um,
I mean, it's pretty pretty. I
well,
mean, it's almost cherry blossom season, so it'd be
let's be
beautiful
honest,
there.
we'd
Yeah.
be handcuffed and
Oh my
dragged
God, I wouldn't even
away.
get across the border.
But on that note, I mean, it's just a sad state of affairs right now when you have the American president doing things like that. And again,
And
there
then,
were people who said too that when they saw him get out of his SUV or limo, and they saw him wearing the military-esque clothes, not a suit, which is sad. We're arguing about a suit here. A lot of aides to Donald Trump, a lot of other observers were saying that that was going to be a problem because in Donald Trump, I know. Breathe, breathe. We'll get through this. Um,
Elon Musk, what does that man wear? The man dresses like a homeless person carrying a chainsaw. I mean, seriously, he's wearing a really ugly baseball cap, a t-shirt, a cheap blazer, and a chainsaw in his last appearance. It's not like he dresses for a person who has more than $25. So I feel like the questions are only if you're outside of the circle. We also have to take into account that Zelensky was dealing with this when he speaks three languages and English is the third. When people are attacking you and it's your third language, you have to translate that in your brain and then articulate a response that isn't what you really want to say. Because I'm sure there were things he really wanted to say that he did
probably.
not because he's trying to be diplomatic. But then the belittling and the bullying was horrible. But then when we think about, I'm going to call it the fake State of the Union address in Congress, Kyle will actually explain what it is, but I call it the fake speech. But he belittled Zelensky even more. I mean, he started saying that Zelensky provided this letter that was like, oh, mea culpa, you were the best. I give you my apologies. Thank you so much for everything you did.
Sorry, was that at the State of the Union esque speech, or was that the day after? Was
No, is that the fake State of the
okay.
Union last
A
night?
lot happened during that, so I can't
It
remember
was,
every
it was
detail that
last
came
night
out, but
during the fake State of the Union. Trump started saying that Zelensky sent this letter apologizing, saying that he's so grateful and all these things. But it kind of reminded me, do you remember when Donald Trump used to tell those stories about someone would meet up with him somewhere and like tell him this story and then start crying and call
mhm.
him sir and call him all these things? I'm like, this is bullshit. Because if we think about the reality, Ukraine did not acknowledge that letter today. There was no conversation about it. Also, Trump got what he wanted, yet this morning he blocked all intel to Ukraine
Mhm.
against Russia, which makes their weapons kind of inept,
Well,
right? Or
yeah,
not useful.
because right now it was announced that the US is no longer going to supply until further notice, or if ever again, give them any more military assistance. So Ukraine has a stockpile right now for however long that lasts. Without that intel, it does render a lot of those systems not as effective as they could be. And these are systems that defend against missile strikes. Um, Perhaps give positioning of Russian troops in Ukraine. I mean, there's so many things that could be happening here that now they're at such a disadvantage. And they already were at a disadvantage.
But if you got what you wanted, and I know that we often question the strategy, shall we call it, of
Hmm.
Donald Trump, but that seems questionable if you got what you wanted. That the very next morning you would be like, well, I'm not going to give you this. And I'm going to ban Britain from telling you any of the information. This seems questionable
But
to me.
that's nothing. That's not really a surprise though, because he's
No.
known to move the goalpost whenever he feels like it, right? He'll say, "Hey, if you want this, we want to see that." You'll give him that, and then all of a sudden, that's not good enough. We're seeing that now play out in
And
Canada.
our tariffs?
We'll get to that shortly, but again, it shows you that whatever goal he has in mind, he's not telling anyone, I think. I don't think anybody in his cabinet really know what the hell he wants because they come out saying contradictory statements. Look at is it the Secretary of Commerce? Yeah, I'm pointing. The Secretary of Commerce, he has said a few times that I think a deal could be made. I think this could happen. And then all of a sudden, it's
Something else
announced,
happens.
no, 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 we're going a different route here. So again, I don't think anybody within that cloud circle storm of chaos really knows what's going on except him. And that isn't a surprise either.
I'm
He
not
has
sure he knows what's going on, to be honest.
that's
I mean,
probably a
I
good
do
point too.
personally have my idea of like what the bigger picture could be. I'm not going to say it because it's kind of crazy,
Oh, we're gonna get into
but
that later on. Not maybe not tonight, but we definitely are gonna have a
but
conversation about that.
I do think that sometimes even he's unsure. Like it's kind of like I don't want to be mean, but do you remember the scenes of Homer Simpson chasing a butterfly and then running going suddenly, oh, look, a sparrow? I kind of feel like that might be it. Like something inspires him that he sees on Fox News or OAN,
That wouldn't
and suddenly
surprise
he's
me.
like, oh, I'm gonna go this route now, or I'm mad at this person,
Yeah, it's a squirrel
or I'm gonna
moment.
attack that. Yeah, squirrel,
Woo,
like
squirrel.
Doug from
And
Up.
oh dear God. Oh, that's a great movie
I love
actually.
that movie.
Um, but so you have that happen. You have poor Zelensky uh effectively now having to come to the States and I don't want to say beg for assistance, but the reality is in that partnership,
Mm,
America does have the upper hand. Canada, the UK, France, Germany, all of Europe came together, shortly after what happened.
absolutely.
And they all said to him, we've got your back. We're going to support you. We're going to give you the aid you need. We're in it for the long run. And I really hope that's true. Um, but you notice this, all of them kind of have that caveat of we need the US
Well,
there.
yeah.
We need that US backstop because first of all, I don't know if any of those countries have that strength to actually prevent Russia from going further. I don't know. I'm not looking at the numbers yet. I haven't done any research onto it. I'm sure there is a possible way of doing that. But, for so long, the US has been such an integral part of that
Well,
European
they put
security.
themselves in that
And they
position,
did.
right?
And now they're backing away from it. And look, I'll say it. I don't necessarily have a problem with a country, the US, for example, saying, look, the rest of the world needs to take on a bigger role when it comes to stuff like this. We've been doing it for many, many years. Hey, by their own
By
choice,
their own choice.
they've stuck their nose into things that didn't concern them for many, many years, bringing freedom to the world and liberty. And hey, in some cases, even backing people that they shouldn't have backed. We can talk about South America another day.
Hmm.
But I mean, when you look at that, you do get presidents who say, not just Donald Trump, but others have said it, maybe we need to take a step back, let our allies take the lead occasionally. But there's a way to do that. And what we're
Absolutely.
seeing happen now is there's no conversation, there's no strategy, there's no, okay, let's have a summit. Our military leaders get together, come up with a plan. Who's going to take over what
It's just
responsibility?
destruction. I
It's,
have to let my dog in. I'm
oh
really
my
sorry.
goodness. So, for those of you who have watched previous episodes, Carmen's dog Whitney, adorable little creature that she is.
She
Oh,
was crying.
she just hit her head on the desk. Poor thing. Oh, look at that.
Sorry, she was crying and I couldn't deal with it. My heart was
Your
breaking.
heart was
My
breaking.
heart was breaking. I kept looking at Kyle going, Can you hear the crying? Can you hear it?
You
Okay.
notice I made no reaction whatsoever. I'm not a heartless animal hater. I have a dog. I love him too. But like we were working here.
I couldn't take it.
It's okay. We love you. Anyways, where was I? Back to the world stage and military alliances, etc. There's no problem with having that conversation. I mean, let's look at Canada, for example. I'm a proud Canadian, but I'll say it. Every one of our governments for the past 30-ish years has kicked the can of military spending down the road. They have. Think about it.
They
I'm
have, but we have to think about the deals that we have standing with America, which now mean absolutely nothing. But we are like siblings with America, right?
and
Sometimes we get mad at them, sometimes we trash them, sometimes we
of
say things
course,
about them. But if someone was mean to them, we'd be like, well, we got your back. But now all of a sudden, no one has anyone's back here.
no one has
And
anyone's
all of the
back.
deals about military and how we're going to deal with that are completely erased. I mean, and that's not just a Canadian thing. I think it's a global thing. Every
Well,
single country is like, oh, we can't deal with America anymore because they're not trustworthy. And even if Donald Trump leaves in 4 years, question mark, um,
question mark.
if he leaves in 4 years, that damage is irreparable, right? It's not going to be fixed, and no one's going to trust America because they're going to pick the next oligarch that says we're not going to do these things
We have
anymore.
to remember America was not always the police of the world. There was a time in
They
history where
chose it
they
though.
did. Oh, no, for sure. And I'm not arguing that. But there was a time when the US was very, I want to say isolationist.
Isolationist, absolutely.
Woodrow Wilson,
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
he was, he finally got involved in World War One, but only toward the very end.
Absolutely.
And only
World
be,
War II was the same thing. They didn't want to engage with it. They didn't want to bring Jewish
yeah,
people into the country.
they were
They
they
were not involved in this because they, I mean,
the
so
support
much was happening.
the support that they gave was very, minimal.
Yep.
We're going to help the UK to a degree, loans,
And so we had
munitions.
Pearl Harbor, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, now our land is in trouble. We're going to engage with this.
And hey, a lot,
Isolationism is a part of America.
and
Absolutely.
I mean, it hasn't been a big part in 80 years since the end of World War II, but you're right, it is there. And Donald Trump is trying to bring that back. This is a
Yeah,
man who
because
this is a man who believes tariffs are the way to boom the economy. If
that
we
ended so well last time.
Exactly, if you look back at the 1930s, tariffs literally cratered their economy. Um,
Led to the Great
led to the
Depression.
Great Depression.
Last time he decided he wanted to annex Canada with tariffs. Something happened in the White House. What happened there in 1812?
We weren't Canada at that time. We were we
We
were
were still
still
pissed off.
we were pissed off. I think we were considered British back then, but
See, it still did not end
it
well.
didn't end well. No, no, no. They had a burning White House, and I mean, we're not going to go back to that, I don't think. No. Um, but it definitely raises the question about what our relationship with the US going forward will be. And it raises the question too of why why are we so dependent on America? It's happened over the course of so many years and decades and simplicity and culture and the fact that they're right next door. And we're so intertwined, but we do need to, I think now especially, look at it as they're not the only player in town.
Well, no,
We do have the ability to negotiate trade and defense with, for example, the
the
UK,
EU.
the EU.
I
The
think
list goes
that
on.
so when the tariffs came in this time,
Mhm.
Justin Trudeau gave a very powerful prime ministerial, very leader
Esque
speech,
speech.
which I was very proud of. But I actually think that was a turning point for Canada, where we actually have to think like, okay, where do we stand in the world? Because we always are the peacekeepers. We go in, we do things, we look after things.
Mhm.
We're supportive, we're kind, we're not always nice, but um I think this is a turning point for us where we're like, okay, we're not going to be in the shadow of our neighbor anymore.
Nope.
We're actually going to stand out. And when the EU was responding what happened to Zelensky at the White House, we were there. We had conversations with everyone. We were part of the conversation.
Yeah.
EU has invited us to be a part of them.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they've made a formal.
No, but they're like, consider coming a part of
Yeah,
us.
work with us on stuff,
Yeah.
and then we'll see what happens from there. It's striking that Canada is at that table, the U.S. is not.
Well, because no one can trust America right now. Donald Trump has destroyed every type of connection that we could possibly think of people being together and being in funding and being in trade and being in everything. So I think the world is trying to scramble right now, which I think is, I'm going to say it, a great reset for Canada to actually get in and be a part of the things or the leadership of the world in the future or how we're going to engage with these things. Absolutely.
But I mean, so let's talk a little bit because there are some more stuff about tariffs that we're going to get into. But let's talk about the keeping with Donald Trump. We do love talking about him. Um, the address to the joint session of Congress, House of Representatives,
The
this
fake State of the Union.
the fake State of the Union, as you called it.
He's
Um,
way better at those kind of things.
every president has the ability, the option, not the option, the invitation to address both the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. That happened the other night in Washington, D.C., where Donald Trump gave what is the longest speech, I believe, on record.
Forever.
He went on for quite a bit, laying
That's
out
the longest speech ever.
it was very long.
And I think that what we really should look at is how much of it was not true.
Oh,
Because
there were
every single thing he said wasn't true.
there was a lot of things in there that were not true for sure. I don't think there was any truth to. I got
90% of it.
I got nothing. I
I
got
mean,
nothing.
honestly, I think when he pointed out a couple of the individuals that he wanted to engage with, some of that was true.
And hey, you know what? Listen, I can clap for, a border patrol officer who defended his comrade in a gunfight on the
I can
border.
clap for
I
that
can do
too,
that.
but
That's
I
something.
don't think I can clap for it when the person cheering it on is the person who instigated January 6th and all the
And
people
and that's
got
the thing.
harmed.
It's a slap in the face, I think, to law enforcement because you have a man who allowed January 6th to occur. And if you don't know what January 6th is, you need to brush
Look
up
it
on
up.
your
Yeah.
history. He allowed that to happen and now denies it. And I mean, the Republicans, uh, they've disgraced themselves as far as I'm concerned when it comes to that whole situation. You have a party that has said we are the law and order party. We support the police. We support law
Only when
enforcement.
they fight for us.
Correct. And what happened to the Capitol police officers who were beaten savagely by
They were just taking a tour through the White House, according to the
sure,
Republicans.
quite the tour. Let's go put our feet up on the speaker's desk after we
Yeah,
bash in a
which is
cop's head.
interesting
It's
because somebody
just
actually put up a meme today, which made me laugh. Do we all remember the QAnon shaman? The guy with the
yeah,
horns?
yeah, I remember that guy.
He was the last Republican that stood at the same desk that Donald Trump talked at last night.
Oh wow. Wow. And you know what? Republican in name only because I really think that party is dead. The Republican
It's a
Party
Trump party.
the Republican Party is dead and it's mutated into this walking corpse known as MAGA. And that's saying something. It's like that show, The Last of Us, where cordyceps infects the body and it takes
Yep,
on. MAGA has done that.
absolutely.
I don't say that lightly because it really is a disgrace. I really think it is. You have a party that once stood for something, the party of Eisenhower, Lincoln, Reagan, and now it's this. But what troubled me more, aside from the stuff he was saying last night, because there's a lot of stuff he said that was disturbing, the Democrats.
Ugh.
The Democrats, I know it bothered you, it bothered me.
We
You
were
had
texting nonstop last night during
There were two extremes to their response. You had Representative Al
a
Green of
rain.
Texas, the ninth congressional district.
Cheer him on.
He stood up with his cane and he yelled at Donald Trump, "You don't have a mandate. You don't have a mandate." And look, I think that was troubling that in this day and age, let me I know you're ready to pounce, but let me finish, please. I think it's troubling in this day and age that there is such disrespect for the office of the president. Let me finish because of the man who's in it. Think about that. The person in the office right now, he has left such a stain on that office that members of Congress are standing up in the House and
I'm gonna
outright
implode.
I'm not defending Donald Trump. I'm saying
I don't think
though,
you're defending him, but I think we're missing the really important thing. It's not him. It is a constitutional crisis. People are being bombed to death with all of the actions of him and Dodge. I don't think, or Doge, whatever the hell it is. No one, it's not just the person. It
it
is actually what is occurring. And the destruction of the Constitution, the destruction of the powers of Congress, all of that. So, no, I'm
no,
sorry.
no,
They should not respect it.
what I never
Kyle is much nicer than I am. I'm just
if
gonna say that
if
right
you
now.
had allowed me to finish,
I'm never gonna let you finish.
you're
Gotta stick
never.
up for that.
That was like the line too far for
Yeah,
you.
it was too far. Even with my like emotional support puppy.
Literally an emotional support puppy. You're doing a poor job, by the way. Um, but then you see the Democrats as a whole sit there and do nothing. They sat
Um,
there defeated, deflated. They had their paddles as if it was an auction
which
house.
is so ridiculous in those TikTok videos that they sent out. Like, what is this? Like freshman day? We're gonna wear all the same clothes. And we're gonna send out the same TikToks. And we're gonna say this. How does that stop the end of a constitutional
It
crisis?
doesn't stop it.
It does nothing.
But I mean, what would have been a better thing as far as I'm concerned, and maybe I'm wrong here, but okay, once Al Green did his thing, and I respect the man for having the
Hmm.
conviction to say, I disagree with this, and I'm not going to sit here and act like this is normal. I'm going to say something. Again, that goes back to how sad has it become? How low have things become that that is the regard you have
You have to
for
make
the
good trouble.
institutions. I get good trouble, and I'm not disputing that. It's just a sad state of affairs that
It
this is where we're
is.
at. And then
But
you have that, and then you look at what the Democrats did, the rest of them, and they just sat there. We
a
had
couple of
two,
them wore little t-shirts and some of them walked out but didn't even get on camera. What should, in my opinion, and I am feisty, is that when Al Green was taken out,
yep.
the next person should have stood up and done the exact same thing. And then the entire Democrat Party that was actually there
Mhm.
should have gone out one at a time, not walked out en masse. Because yes, Donald Trump really hates when he doesn't have a big audience,
Of course.
but it would have stalled his speech and his lies and his disinformation as one person after another was taken out. What they actually did was provide the internet with the best opportunity for memes to mock
Oh,
them holding their little
absolutely.
paddles.
Um,
They could mock them for those TikTok videos where every single one said the exact same speech. What they did was pointless. I will give credit to AOC. I'm not always a fan of AOC. I think a brilliant woman, but I think sometimes caters to some of the very far left, which is no different than catering to the very far right, in my opinion. But AOC actually listened to people on Blue Sky and went, okay, so you guys don't think I should go? I'm going to live skeet and have this conversation with you and engage. I think that there is a conversation where people are looking for Democrats to engage with them to do something.
but here's the other problem I had with the Democrats too, and I have this had this for a while. When Republicans are out of power, when they've lost,
Absolutely.
they are, yes, they're defeated, but they're never deflated. They walk in there defiant. They walk in there ready to kick up a fight. They're ready to, you know, stick their heels in the ground and call out everything they disagree with, right or wrong, and usually it's wrong. But I will give them that. They never back
They don't
down.
sulk,
They don't sulk, exactly.
which
They
is,
might turn over and be for
and
something one day and
also,
against it the next. But every politician does that to a certain degree. Not as much as
absolutely.
them lately.
But when the Democrats took over and Biden was president, Donald Trump did not stop being leader of the Republican
No, he
Party.
didn't.
Constantly engaged, constantly put out tweets, sorry, put out all kinds of things where there's no one leading the Democrats.
There's
There's
nobody.
no one doing
The
anything.
the two highest ranking members of that party elected in office right now is Chuck Schumer, the senator from New York,
Don't even get me started with him and his posts on social media,
and then you have Hakeem Jeffries, the new Democratic leader
who
in the
just wants to
House.
do politics as normal when nothing what we're doing is politics is normal.
I will give Nancy Pelosi this, and I know Nancy Pelosi is like Satan to the to the Republicans. But that bitch knew her stuff. And I say that with
Absolutely.
all due respect. She
Absolutely.
never would have allowed votes to come to the floor
No.
she didn't have the support for. She knew how to keep her party in line. She knew how to actually protest something in a smart way.
Do you remember at the end of Donald Trump's, I think it was the State of the Union, where she ripped up?
Mhm.
I was like, that is a perfect
It
image.
was subtle, but effective.
So effective. And what we saw, and Jeffries
And for
is
the
not the
and for
leader.
the record, before anybody cries about how, that was disrespectful, yeah, it is disrespectful that you do that to a president's speech. But this is the same man who, by the way, allowed jokes and despicable comments be made
He called
about her husband who was beaten nearly to death in their home in San Francisco by some nut job.
Yeah.
Rather than be presidential and say, hey,
Are
politics
you okay?
aside, that's not cool. That's not fine.
I mean, even
What
last
can
night
I
he
do for
called
you?
Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. I mean, the racism,
Mhm.
the transphobia, the homophobia, the hate ideology that was being articulated by him last night, that I'm gonna say, even if you didn't want to have like an organized protest from the Democrats, I won't be in a room where that stuff is being said without me calling it out. I call it conspiracy, I call it hate, I call it all that stuff, even if it is just a silent movement out of the room. The Democrats did bupkis last night while that was happening. And they actually sat there and was like, oh, yeah, we're going to take this beating. Thank you for telling us that we're bad kids, Daddy. I
Mm.
mean, it was embarrassing on so many
It
levels.
was embarrassing, and I think the Democrats need to do something and not just sit there and take things. They need to first of all find someone that they can, champion their cause, lead this opposition. Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries are not
And
that
not the
person.
options.
And you know what? As much as I respect Nancy Pelosi,
She's not the option.
her time has
Elizabeth Warren
passed.
is not the
Elizabeth
option.
Warren is not the option. Do they have anybody in that party who would be able to
There
do
were
that right
actually,
now? Is there anyone you can think of?
I can't think of their names, but there were two people last night who actually put out like after speeches, not like the ridiculous one from Slotkin last night, but actual two
You
speeches.
really didn't like that one, did
Oh
you?
my God, it made me so angry. I know last night Kyle and I were like tweeting and messaging back and forth. I went to bed, I didn't watch it live, I watched it after. And
Oh,
then I
I
got
watched it
even
live.
angrier because, okay, A, we have a president sitting in Congress trashing LGBTQ2SA people. Ronald Reagan was the one that hid the AIDS epidemic in America, did absolutely nothing. We had so many people that had to rise up. There were so many deaths. And here this chick comes out and goes, well, why is it baby of the Cold War? And if Donald Trump was president, we wouldn't have come out of it. I'm sorry, that man just stood there and trashed an entire community of human beings.
Mhm.
And so you're going to say, oh, you know what, who I think the hero might be? The one who let them all die after you voted to say, I'm not going to let the pride flag fly or I'm not going to support trans communities.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, by promoting more homophobia does not help the situation.
And it's valid, absolutely. And what he said last night was despicable and it was insulting to so many
Human
to human
beings,
beings. I do want to make this quick point, and it's a conversation we've had a little bit, and
a little bit and not a
we're
lot.
gonna have more at some point. Maybe our next episode.
We haven't seen each other for a couple weeks.
We've been busy. I mean, it's the first time I've done this live together in a few weeks, so it's nice to do this.
I miss him.
But I say this with as much delicacy as I can because I don't want to offend anyone. I try not to. When she made that speech, is this a sign that the Democratic Party, because rest assured, someone made that speech for her, someone wrote that speech for her, I'm sure of it. Somebody double checked it,
It
signed off
doesn't
on
have
it.
their thumb on the pulse of what's actually happening in the world.
Valid, but does this say the party, right or wrong, reality or not, are they saying this is no longer an issue that we are going to champion to such a great length? Because, and let me finish,
I'm letting you finish.
I'm not, thank you, not that it's right, because I don't believe it is, But you have the Democrats who are known to support transgender, LGBTQ, etc. I say etc. because there are many letters to that, and I honestly can't remember them all these days. No offense to anybody. They champion those causes, but to the everyday American who is standing in a grocery
You know something
store,
about to implode.
I do. So I'm trying to be delicate here. Delicate. I'm not saying they're wrong, but that is not the issue that every single American is facing. It's an issue. It is. People are suffering. People need to be respected. But are they losing that independent vote? That, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat. I vote based on how it's going to benefit me and my family in this moment. Because during the election, breathe, breathe, breathe. You got this. You got this. Shh. Think of soft, warm kitties.
We're
Our pet puppy, your emotional support dog. Where'd you go?
She's really
Um,
not an emotional support dog.
you think about it during the election, Kamala Harris and the party was promoting all this inclusivity, and it was beautiful. It was. I think it's great that we're at a time in history where a
Having a
party can
drink.
promote that. You're gonna have a drink.
Having a drink.
Um, but for the everyday person,
But
that's not the number one priority for them. I'm not saying it's right, but if you're in a grocery store and you're trying to buy food for your family, and right now, especially right now in the States and in Canada, we're very lucky. We can go buy a carton of it, no problem.
to talk, I can't take it. Okay, first of all,
You can't afford groceries, yet you're telling
oh
me
my God, that's the next level bullshit. People were like, I can't afford eggs. And Donald Trump was like, I will make you afford eggs.
he
They're like
lied. He lied.
$14 a
He's
dozen. Oh
full of
no,
shit, and
hold
I'm
up.
not.
People
I'm
don't care. People say I care about economics. What people care about is culture war issues, the things that motivate them and mobilize them. For the Democrat Party, I'm absolutely going to say this, and it's probably going to get me in trouble, and I don't really care. But honestly, yes, I agree with you to the extent that everyday Americans may not engage with trans individuals. They may not engage with
Thank you. That was the
LGBTQ
point I'm
people.
trying to make, that it's
But,
not number one on their radar when they go to vote. Go ahead. Go
but
ahead.
wait, when we said we need to save the whales, and people were like, oh, well, we care about the whales, but what about the other animals that are in the ocean or the other amphibians? And people were like, but the whales are the ones in trouble. When we think about individuals who are in trouble right now, it is trans and LGBTQ community. For the Democrat Party to go, oh, you know what? We're going to pull out the person that let a whole pe bunch of people die. Not only are you saying, okay, we're going to move away from this topic, but you're also saying to a very large swath of humanity that we don't give a shit about you when Donald Trump is putting out laws eradicating them. He is not just eradicating them, he's eradicating people of color, he's eradicating women, he's eradicating anyone who doesn't look like him or Elon Musk. And to send out a woman to stand there and say, oh, I want to talk about Ronald Reagan, the person who was like, oh, no child left behind unless they were gay,
That was Bush. That was
LGBTQ,
Bush.
screw that. I don't care. I don't care. Fucking Republicans.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't,
Okay.
seriously, to
Thank God we're not on cable, right? Actually, cable, you could say this, but
absolutely. I mean, honestly, to diminish or let go of a group of human beings who are women,
hmm,
who are of color, who are LGBTQ, and bring out Ronald Reagan, who had zero fucks to give about any of them, while your party is floundering, while these people are in crisis, all of these communities are in crisis, just says to me the Democrat Party says, we don't give a shit. They can't stand up. They can't engage with the communities that are in trouble. And articulating this is very problematic to me. I can't remember the names of the two Democrats. One was Bernie Sanders, which is the third one. Bernie Sanders had a great speech that has well more viewers than Slotkin's views last night in her little diatribe at the end. But there are two other Democrats, and I will give it to you so you can put it into the comments because I can't think of their names. But they gave incredible responses, and we're not paying attention to those voices. And I'm not attacking AOC, I'm not attacking Slotkin,
Mm,
I'm not attacking Warren because you know I love her a little bit and I love Nancy Pelosi a little bit.
just a
But we
little.
need to have just a little bit. We need to hear these other voices because we're in trouble right now.
Well, and I think that speaks to the fact that the
Sorry, that
party,
was a rant.
just a little bit of a rant.
And then my wine down.
Oh boy. To be fair, it is 10:30 at night we're doing this. We've had a long day.
I'm really sorry.
That's okay. I forgive
That
you.
was a really good rant though, and it was valid.
It was valid. You
It
raised
was
good points.
valid.
You did raise good points. I'm not arguing with you on any of that. There is that swath of the population that is being treated with such despicable, deplorable, horrific treatment. It's awful.
It's
I'm gonna end it
absolutely
there.
horrible.
It's awful. Um,
I'm gonna be in
but
trouble.
part of the question though that I have, and yes, a lot of younger Republicans, sorry, Democrats who are coming into the picture, forming the leadership of tomorrow, basically, they did have good things to say. What would be in under a minute, please, under a minute,
I don't know if I can do that.
what does the Democrats do? What do they do in 2026 to
I
maybe
got
win
this.
back the House? The House is their best bet. The Senate right now, too close, it's too far out to see where the makeup of that will go, but the odds are not in their favor there, unfortunately. But for the House, it really is. And again, you flip one, you kill off any legislative ability that the president has because you do need both
Absolutely.
houses to pass a bill. What does the Democrats in 2026 have to do to reach out to not just their own base because you have to
You have to
expand
go
beyond
kind
your
of past that.
base? How do you get the voters you lost? Go.
Interestingly, they actually put out a thing, the Democrats, the other day, that they had a meeting and they were talking about that what they needed to do was actually talk to rural Americans,
Mhm.
talk to patriots, talk to the religious, talk to people who may not be part of the party, which is fascinating to me because in 1963, the Republican Party said the exact same thing. But what the Republican Party was looking to do was get the extremists to make the moderates bow down to them. The Democrats are actually doing the exact same party plan, but to get the moderates to be in charge of the extreme left in the party. I don't know the answer, but I do think they need to take back who those people are who have been disenfranchised from Donald Trump. They have to curtail that anger and that disappointment and provide some type of answer. It can't be a fluffy answer of kumbaya. It has to be, okay, how do we have this conversation? Okay, you have issues with these culture war topics. How do we find a compromise? How do we engage and be progressive, be inclusive, but don't harm the greater society?
Good point. And valid. Here's my take on it.
It's your turn.
My turn, and I'll keep it under a minute, I promise. You have to not just focus on why you can't vote for them, why
Oh my
you
God, that's the
can't
worst thing.
because
100% I agree with you.
every party does this. It's happening in Canada too. We see it. We've seen all the parties do it. Don't vote for them. This is what they're supporting. This is what's going to happen if you give them another chance to
Tell
put
us
them in
what you're
power.
gonna do.
That's right. Yes, you do have to vilify them to a degree. That's politics. You do have to paint them in an unfriendly image because you want people to not vote for them. But then when I'm standing at that ballot box and I'm holding whatever crappy marker pencil that they leave us, it's actually despicable. I was at, no, it is. I'm going to give a little rant here of my own. I
I
was
love you
voting
so
in the
much.
last election in Ontario here, and the place they picked was horrible. It smelled like pee. The door was locked. I had to stand out there waiting for someone to let us in to go vote. People were, I'm pretty sure, would have walked away because you're knocking at the door hoping that you get their attention.
Was it like when it first opened?
This was later on in the evening, and I get it. It was in a retirement home. You're
So
all
everyone
thinking,
was asleep.
wow, there he comes. It was a retirement home, but why pick a location like that? I'm sorry. It should be a place where, fine, have security for the safety of all, but I shouldn't have to knock on a door. I shouldn't have to wait for someone to hopefully hear my knock and come let me in. We stood there for a little while, um, and had to get the attention of one of the workers to come let us in. Um, I get it. They've had a long day. It's toward the.
Wow, that is
I think it was poorly organized, and if you're gonna have a polling location, it
it
needs to be in
might
a
be a
better
little town.
place. Cambridge is not that small. Yes, I just gave away the
Yeah,
city.
you did.
Who cares?
You should not, no. I feel like that we also did, where was mine? I was like, oh, mine was like, I went for early voting because I wasn't in the town that I normally live in. So I had to go to the actual office of the Liberal Party to go vote.
The Liberal Party? Or
Yeah.
you mean the actual like
No,
Elections Ontario?
Liberal Party.
Wait, you had to go vote for your in their campaign off? Like, how
And
does
their
that?
office, it was like next to it. And I
Oh, it was
went,
right next to it. I was
and
gonna
like
say, isn't that illegal?
we had to go in upstairs, and I was the only person there. It took me like 2.5 seconds, marched it off and left. It was like in some rando building near the subway.
Well, anyways,
Sorry, we totally went
we
off.
went way off there. But my
Okay.
point is, it was a very low budget situation. I had a crappy marker and I wasn't happy about it.
Oh,
I
pumpkin.
know, first world problems.
Oh.
Where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought.
You were trashing the Democrats and what they should do in the future.
Is that to calm me down or something? Like, it's okay. Wow.
You know
Are you
what?
petting me like you're petting Whitney? The hell?
We had this conversation earlier. So we were out tonight, and when I have a really great idea, I hit
You
somebody.
do.
And when I actually care about you and you're saying something, I'm like, oh, I got you. Very touchy.
I'm being like molested live on camera here. Anyways,
It won't be
moving.
live when you guys see
It
it.
won't be live.
You may want to check on him afterwards
There
just to
may
make
be
sure it
some
was okay.
editing or it may never see the light of day. Moving on from that. Where the hell were we?
I
I know.
lose
I'm just going to
myself.
move on to our next topic. It'll come to me later, but we'll discuss it next time. Canada. Speaking of elections, speaking of Canada, we have our own elections coming up on Monday, March 10th. The Liberal Party will announce the winner of their election to take over from Justin Trudeau.
New
That
prime
that's
minister.
right. It's either going to be Chrystia Freeland or Mark Carney. If you look at the polls, Mark Carney is
Carney's
currently
in.
the lead. He is not a sitting MP, which means he will not be in the House of Commons. That has happened before. We've had prime ministers who
Hmm.
were not MPs, had to govern from outside the House. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does in times like this create a problem where the leader of the country isn't going to be part of the
Hmm.
debate. Now, yes, you can have a junior member of the party who's in a very safe seat fall on their sword,
And go, I give up my spot for you.
the Oscar goes to.
Thank you.
And that has happened, but an election's going to occur sometime over the summer, most likely, if the vote of no confidence, as each opposition party has pledged, does happen, does pass, will be an election. If that doesn't happen, and if, say, the NDP, not the Conservatives, they're going to vote
Oh yeah,
100% against them,
absolutely.
but if the NDP or the Bloc Québécois say, no,
We
no.
support
We
you.
support you until October, because by law, October of this year, we have to have an election. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That does make things a little more complicated because do they have that person resign and do a by-election in the summer, or do they wait till October? The leader of the country may not be in the House of Commons. I think that's a problem.
It is a problem, but I think that if I was a strategist,
Hmm.
I would call an election. I would support
Yeah.
the CPC and be like, yeah, let's dissolve this and make it happen.
Yeah.
Because if Carney is actually the leader of the Liberal Party, it is problematic for Polyev. And I will say they put out commercials last week that was like Donald
Hmm.
Trump saying words and Polyev saying the words. Donald Trump saying the words, Polyev saying the words over and over. His connection and repetitiveness of Trump, while Canada is coming together as a nation, as one, is really not playing well during these tariffs, not even a little bit.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, we've seen, for example, the conservatives and the liberals 6 months ago, Liberals were dead. They
Gone.
had no hope. If you don't follow politics in Canada, you should. It can be entertaining occasionally. The
Sometimes.
Liberals were going to be wiped out. It was perhaps going to be, you know, almost like reverse Uno from the 1993 election when the Conservatives got
Hmm.
wiped out. Back then, they were the Progressive Conservatives. Mulroney jumped ship. Kim Campbell took over. Massive defeat. Liberals went on to lead for 10 more
Smash.
years.
Yeah.
No, no, more than 10 years, sorry. I think 13
It
years,
was a really
give
long
or
time.
take. It was from 93 to
The
2006.
glory years of Canada.
Prime Minister Jean-Claude Chien.
Sean
Uh,
Christian. He wrote a kick-ass letter about what is happening with the tariffs in America. I don't know if you've all seen that, but you should read it. It was fantastical.
Legendary Prime Minister of Canada. Almost reverse of what that was going to happen. And now we see the polls closing.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
almost neck and neck, depending on what poll you look at. If you're Pierre Poilievre, if you're the Conservative Party, you're looking at this thinking, what the hell happened? We were going to win this. We were going to have the largest mandate in history, possibly. Sorry, Doug Ford. They had a better shot, not you. Um,
Yeah,
that's a whole other topic.
we're not going to cover that
We're not going
today.
to cover that tonight. We will cover that eventually. But what does that say? Canadians are what more united against or
Absolutely.
against the US, and because of that, they're willing to back the current party, is what Justin Trudeau and the Liberal ministers, the foreign minister, the defense minister, all these ministers who've been involved in these conversations, has that somehow raised their prospects, raised the votes of
Absolutely. I
everybody?
think when you think about it, if Canada is under attack, because we don't think it's all Americans, I'm just going to keep saying that. We don't think it's all Americans. If we are under attack and the spearhead of that attack is Donald Trump,
Mhm.
we're not going to elect our own Donald Trump.
No.
And when Pierre Poilievre and his party articulate the same things about anti-wokeness, about anti-LGBTQ, anti-immigration, all the things that we hear echoing from the South, we're going to pick a party that says, oh, okay, wait, we're going to stand up to this. And I'm going to be honest. I mean, I know that we have differing opinions about Justin Trudeau, but Justin Trudeau was very strong in his response and has been very strong in his
I'm
response
going to
to
agree with
Trump.
you. I believe since this has occurred, I've said it before, he stepped up. He went before the Canadian people. He said, here's what's going on. Here's what we're going to do. We're in it together. No one province is going to suffer needlessly more than the other. We're going to get through this. It'll be painful.
But we're going to get through
We're
it.
gonna get through it. I think he did the right thing.
I
He
think he did
struck the
too.
right tone, and I give him credit for that. I
And
know the last
that,
couple of months he hasn't had the best go of it. He's been attacked from every corner for various reasons. Um, Love him or hate him, his popularity took a major hit
it
for
did.
lots of
But
reasons. But
when
it
Canada
doesn't
is in
seem
trouble, he stands up for her.
he stood up. He did the right thing. He will be gone regardless of what's happening now.
Absolutely.
He's stepping away.
Oh
Donald
my
Trump
God.
made jokes about that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull it up because I have it on my phone. So today, Donald Trump, even though the tariffs have come into effect and Canada is fighting back with their own tariffs, Donald Trump today took off the tariffs against
The
auto
automakers.
industry.
He did it for 1 month, another reprieve. Not the full reprieve we got last time. This is just for the automakers. Go ahead.
So Donald Trump today on Truth Social Media wrote, so apparently Donald, yeah, I'm going to call him by their first name, Donald and Justin had a conversation. And Donald put on Truth, Justin Trudeau of Canada called me to ask what could be done about tariffs. I told him that many people have died from fentanyl that came through the borders of Canada and Mexico, and nothing has convinced me that it has stopped. He said that it's gotten better, but I said that's not good enough. It's down to 0.01% fentanyl coming through. Plus, our border czars and all the people who are there are now finding Americans who are trying to become illegal aliens in Canada because they're leaving that nation. And he said the call ended in a somewhat friendly manner. He was unable to tell me when the Canadian election is taking place, which made me curious, like what's going on here? Like Canada's in a dictatorship? Then I then realized he's trying to use this issue to stay in power. Okay, Donald Trump really learned how international politics work. He's resigned. As of Monday, he is no longer our prime minister. But then he,
Just to clarify, Monday is the day the election for the Liberals,
I know,
and then they'll negotiate his day. But yeah, you're right.
basically.
He is leaving. He'll be gone probably by the end of the week.
Then Donald Trump posted, for anyone who's interested, I also told Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada that he largely caused the problems we have with them because of his weak border policies, which allowed tremendous amounts of fentanyl and illegal aliens to pour into the United States. These policies are responsible for the death of many people. Okay, before we had the border czar and all this stuff, 43 pounds of fentanyl went in. Granted, a lot of people can die in 43 pounds, not compared to the thousands that came from Mexico. Also, the number of illegal people crossing over into America is very, very small. Now we have more people crossing from America coming into Canada. Also, this has nothing to do with the border or fentanyl or illegal aliens. It has to do with our resources here and annexing our
And
country.
I'll agree with you on that point. Yes, he keeps moving the goalpost, saying not enough has been done, not enough has been done. You know, Mr. President Donald, as you call him, as you
JT
know,
called him too.
as the Prime Minister called him, uh, you're full of it.
You're full of shit.
You're full of shit. Okay. I agree. That is not why he's doing this. He wants the minerals, he wants our resources. He wants something.
He's not doing, okay, if a significant number of people are crossing the southern border or a significant number of pounds of fentanyl are crossing from Mexico, why are you not focusing on that? Because there's another cause to this.
There is, and I do like though to keep this train moving. When it comes to the tariffs, uh, the 25% tariffs. There's a pause when it comes to the auto industry for 1 month. You had Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, who just won his re-election. That's another topic for another
Kyle
day.
is going to say nice things right now.
I will say nice things because I actually agree with him. He said not good enough. 30 days for the auto industry is not good enough, and Ontario is not going to, we are not going to back down from our response. And that was taking American alcohol off the shelves of the LCBO, which is one of, if not the largest purchaser of
Hmm.
alcohol in the world. We don't have a drinking problem in Ontario. We're just a little more controlled here with our sales. Um, I believe Starlink is canceled, so $100 million for Elon Musk down the toilet. And any other contracts
Isn't there
for
something about nickel as well? Like we're not setting nickel and we're
I,
not
I
setting
I
potash.
believe there's going to be restrictions on nickel, potash, and energy, or it's going to be taxed higher. I'm not quite sure how it'll be done, but he's not backing down. He's basically saying
I'll give him
tariffs
props
go
there for
away.
too. I'll give him props. I will.
And the foreign minister of Canada, she said too tonight, that Canada is not going to keep playing this game every 30 days. Like there
No.
needs to be a deal that puts an end to this, or we're moving on to other things.
Or maybe Donald Trump could negotiate another fair trade agreement with Canada and Mexico, and then half an hour later
It's
say,
funny you mention that because didn't he do that in
yeah,
2018, 2019?
said, I don't know who organized this, but it's terrible. Maybe it was him.
I don't want to turn this into a Trump bashing event, but he makes it so easy.
It makes it so easy.
At the end of the day, the man doesn't know what he's doing. He's just chaos and destruction, and we're gonna keep watching that.
Should we deal with our God's angry man of the
I
week?
think we've come to that point of the night where we do bring up our God's angriest man. So, our God's angriest man of this week, this episode is U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, better known as Little Marco to Donald
Little
Trump.
Marco.
If you don't remember their back and forth during the 2016 election, the primaries and whatnot, go back and watch those clips. It was quite funny about how they argued about the size of certain things. The reason I am making him that, giving him this wonderful title, is his non-reaction, his nothing. He just slouched there on the sofa.
He was a couch potato
He
on the
was a
couch.
couch potato. He was sinking into that
He was like
sofa.
Do you guys, oh, I'm sorry, but this image just came into my head. Do you remember the image of Homer Simpson going into the bush and hiding into the bush? If Marco Rubio could have gone into the couch slot between the
Yeah,
cushions, he would have absolutely done that,
absolutely.
like Homer Simpson.
You are, and we've said this before, you are the chief diplomat of the United States. Countries negotiate with you. They call you when there is a problem,
Hmm.
and they saw you sitting there allowing that to happen. Now, I get it. He can't stand up and say, Mr. President, shut up. He can't do that. We know that would not end well for him.
No,
I mean, they'd
but
probably drag him out back and execute him. I don't know. But
I don't think Trump is Putin yet.
not yet. But the point
Short window.
is, he's not a. Well, I'd like to think that there is some intelligence there where you ran against him. You're a senator. You had a somewhat successful career in the Senate. You were reelected multiple times in Florida. You took on this position of Secretary of State, knowing that members of the president's cabinet, this particular president, they don't have the longest track record. A lot of
Mm-mm.
them end up being
Half
fired or
hour.
resigning or one scandal after
One
another.
Scaramucci, isn't that what it's
But
called?
Scaramucci, oh my goodness. Yeah, remember him,
Remember him?
Scaramucci?
And it was like 28 days or something, and that's how they like measured it, one Scaramucci or two Scaramuccis.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I just think if I were in his position and I was offered that, that office, and a lot of great people have held that office over the years, I
Yeah.
would have declined it because I would know I would be put
Oh,
in an
absolutely.
impossible position. And I think that was regrettable. I think it's sad to see his career go down like that. I don't see how he bounces back from this because now he's out there peddling Donald Trump's whiplash foreign policy. But we're gonna
But
have
didn't
to.
he last night in the fake State of the Union address? Didn't he single out Marco Rubio?
He called out a number of his cabinet secretaries, and Marco Rubio was one of them. And he stood there and he smiled, looking dead behind the eyes. Um, I don't know what to say about him, but
How do you sell your soul for something that is just going to ruin you? I mean, I can understand if you sold your soul to get something that was pretty amazing, but he got nothing out of this but a title and shame.
in shame. You know, to close it off, I'm gonna say this. It is sad that Donald Trump, in his second term, his last term, we think,
Hopefully.
we'll see. He has his way, we'll see. He could have done something here. He could have been like, you know what? Let's not have the drama. Let's not have the
It's
chaos.
redeem.
Let's redeem. And then we knew that was never going to happen. But I remember when his is it Susie Wiles, the
Hmm.
chief of staff,
Yeah.
did she not say the clown car has to stop? If I'm going to be your chief of staff, we need to actually get some work
Oh,
done.
and I've said some pretty stupid things in my life too. That clown car is absolutely full of more rubber
Oh,
shoes
it's
and
it's
clown
coming through
noses.
the White House, all day long. Um, But there was an opportunity there, I think, and no one actually thought he was going to be any different. But you know, on its surface, and this is going to be my final note of the night. On its surface, reevaluating and renegotiating the way diplomacy is done and security arrangements are done, and even trade policy. There's nothing wrong with saying to your allies, look, maybe we sit down and look at this. We're no longer feeling a benefit for it. Can we sit down and have an actual grown-up conversation and negotiate something here? And I think most countries would be
You'd be
fine.
like,
Like,
yeah.
fine, let's sit down and see where we can make this work. I think when you look at the federal government and DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency run by the one and only Elon Musk, I don't think most Americans have a problem with saying, yeah, maybe the government's gotten a little bloated. Maybe there's five people for one job. Let's look at this carefully. Let's make sure that we're doing this efficiently. We're
Not
eliminating.
just blind firing and
That's it.
emails and
There's no
ridiculousness or
organization here.
chainsaws.
And, Republicans who are criticizing Others for getting mad at Elon Musk and his demands for send me an email with your 5 accomplishments. Okay, in the private sector, yeah, your boss is going to ask you, what did you do this week? What did you do this month? And that's a perfectly legitimate question for your boss to ask you. But here's the thing. Who the hell made Elon Musk my boss? If I work in the federal government, the last time I checked, there is a chain of command. I
Absolutely.
report to a manager, to a secretary, to somebody who was Senate confirmed or appointed, not some random weird dude.
Who was not elected and who also has probably screwed the American computer system overwhelmingly. And
Another conversation
we
for
will.
another day.
But I'm going to say that it's problematic where we sit. And
Hmm.
I say we, even though Kyle and I are not Americans, because it affects the global market, the global world,
You can't.
and human beings. Like, how many people are dying from USAID cuts? How many
Mhm.
people are dying from breakfast in school cuts or being harmed by lack of
UN Food
vaccinations?
Program,
Yeah.
World Health Organization, CDC cuts.
The fact there's a measles outbreak
In
in, in
Texas,
Texas,
which is run by Republicans, but
okay,
another.
another conversation. But where we are right now, it seems that cutting indiscriminately seems to be more powerful than actual human beings,
Mhm.
which is problematic when, as a nation, you put yourself as we are going to be the hero to everyone and the protector to everyone, and we're going to put out goodwill by helping and doing these things. Now, all of a sudden, take that away. How much ill will are they creating, and how will that affect our future?
I think it's some food for thought. But on that cheerful note, thank you
I'm
for
always so
watching.
happy.
You are. Thank you for watching this episode of God's Angry Man. If you like what you've watched and want to see more, please click subscribe at the bottom or that little bell button for alerts on our next video and comment below. We love feedback. We want to hear your thoughts. If you have questions, let's have it. If you have ideas, let's have it. We want to create that conversation. We said that in the first episode. Let's find that middle ground if there's anybody still there and let's have a conversation and meet people where they're at and maybe just maybe together we can pull through the next few years and
Hopefully.
survive.
Hopefully. If not, I will pet everyone to make it
Help.
better.
On that
Thank you.
note,
Have a great
have a
night.
great
Thank you for
night.
watching.